So we move into the second turn of Wealth of Nations. I've moved the first player marker already, but this guy's got to pay $1 for his promissory note. This is from the Clouds of War expansion and second edition rules, which are probably online or something as well. Just indicating an extra cost to holding a loan, a real interest cost rather than just yeah, you just pay me back the right amount at the end of the game. By the end of the game, I think it works better. It shows the real cost of borrowing. Really. Well, we open up with a simple trade. Instead of selling to the market, I can sell elsewhere. I can make a deal with another player, and 2 yellows is worth about 13, which is not far from the price of a blue. This guy's got a pile of blues. I want that. The blue and the yellow will let me produce with my last territory. I'm pretty much tapped out here with this Frenchish looking country. Although the leader's not very Frenchish looking, I don't think. Looks perhaps. I was thinking he looks more North African due to the dress. I don't know who he's supposed to be. Anyway, so that's our first trade. It's not going to clear his promissory note. But it does allow him to continue onward. Is this a deal that really wanted to be made? You know, here's the problem. These guys are neighbors. That may not be the best of situations to give food to a guy who maybe wants to move his army near you. Hard to tell. But he's not going to get a better deal on blue from anyone else. So, what the hell. Black pieces are in high demand. Only one person's producing them over here. And really the deal is 3 blues at 10, 20, 31 almost pays for a little bit more than the next black cube, which is $30. He was trying to look for 2, which is say $24 on the even market, looking at 26 here, going up to 27. But you know, black is saying, nah, my pieces are worth more than your blue pieces. Go ahead and sell them. If I need blue, I got a couple already. But if I really need it, I can buy one. So what we're going to see here is a quick sell-off. And that's $31 thrown in his pocket. He can't immediately buy the black. Who knows? The market may not hold it. He may not have enough money to buy it anyhow. We'll see. A little bit more trading here. I think a red and some, let's see, it was a red for a yellow. 19 to 15, I think. Some cash traded hands. I'm not sure in what direction because he's kind of below in cash. So it may have only been for 2 yellow. Let's see, what is this? This is 13. And that was, looks like worth 19. So he must have given some cash. Actually, I think he may have gotten the 3 yellows he has here. This guy couldn't find a deal for his black that was worth making, so he just sold it to the market for $29. He planning on automating his factory, and well, he's got energy to run it. He could use 3 food, which would run him $24, or 1 ore if he might automate, which will cost him a little less. So he's going to go with the ore. Well, we see another promissory note fall as he's trying to buy a red to put into this space. Get his production boosted. If it goes up high enough, well, then he can pay this off. That's his guess. It hasn't worked too well for him. He hasn't been able to get that kick in production he expected to get from taking the promissory note. So, I don't know. I think all the trading's been done. I'll probably find out I made a mistake, but it's hard to keep track of what everybody's trying to do. It'd be easier with this, but I don't know how much. I'm able to track most of the stuff. The only thing I can't track is the military units. the costs I'm planning for them. The only person who's thinking about that and actually bought to do it was this guy. He didn't have the money to expand, so he's looking at an invasion into those valuable black areas. I don't know how that's going to work out, but black is so valuable that he wanted to try to crank it. First time around on the expansion, not everybody can afford. We see red building being expanded here. This guy flagging. He's got an intention to build red. We're starting to see some serious red production, which may deflate the price significantly. And that's one of the things you may not want to follow these bargain or guideline prices, because if a lot of people are holding something, well, you get kind of the stronger hand. So if a couple of people are producing a decent amount of red, this guy's only going to produce 2, but it's kind of an issue, right? If only one person's really producing it, I think he can ask a fair price. He can assume it's a fair price because nobody else is going to undercut him. Over here, what did he do? Yeah, he automated. And he's got problems because the next guy built an army and is intending, like I mentioned, to go grab some of that black produce. And here's the problem with the automation here. He's kind of got to run the whole sector. And his choice is the whole sector or tile by tile with food. Well, he doesn't have food, so it's got to be the whole sector. And if it is, he's giving a black to the other player who's going to be invading him. That's not really a good deal for him. But the other option is to starve himself, which is a worse deal. I think that's one of the interesting things in this game, though. It does allow for some king making in the sense that, hey, you gonna finish me off here? You gonna hurt me that bad? Fine, I won't produce. You know, not exactly king making, but a retaliatory. It's not gonna be worth it for you. Screw you, man. And he may. You never know. Over here, he's expanding and is planning on building more farms, getting that dominance of the food production. Although this guy is producing a decent amount too. Farms are pretty common. All right, around again. And I think everything's come to fruition. We see the farm up here, the red. The army has actually moved in. I'm not sure which way that's going to go. And for each of those moves, one move in, they've fought because, well, the guy who owns it isn't going to produce anything if he doesn't fight the battle. So forcing him to play another food to come in again. And now, well, if he produces, it's an issue. I'm going to roll a die for him. On a 1, he's just going to say screw you. But that's basically conceding the game at this point, if he's not going to produce. If he does produce, he'll at least have some bargaining power, maybe be able to convince this guy to come marching in and, you know, help him out. I don't know. Looking at the production situation, this guy had enough produce to fire off this white, but it required a blue and a yellow to do it. Now, a yellow's, what, 6, and a blue is 13, that's 19. That's worth more than what he would have gotten a white for it. He just doesn't think it's worth it. He'd rather hold the pieces, and I don't know. But, you know, it doesn't make sense to produce something for more than it is worth. Well, that's it for production. We'll go to the next turn. Move this here. People are going to have to pay for their promissory notes. I'll try to remember that. But production-wise, you can kind of see we're still seeing this. Oh, I forgot to do him. He's got a whole bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can't count. All right, I'll do it otherwise. But for one blue, he's getting a horde of yellows. Of course, yellows are the lowest price thing. But we see specialization everywhere. White's over here in his stolen black, which he couldn't have used in production. I don't know. Nobody uses black in production anyway. Pile of reds here. He's not cranking. He's not really cranking. This I'm not that impressed with, although those reds are kind of valuable. Anyway, onward. Well, working my way around through the trades, one of the big defining moments is this little war here. The English player is, got an army on his foreign soil. He wants to get that off. So he's building an army. He's collecting up the cash to actually conduct an operation with the army so that he can destroy the enemy. The enemy is tinkering with the idea of building a second army, because it looks like he can tell what's going on there. Alternatives, well, he's got to also power up what he's got, and he's not really moving in that direction. He's had all these white cubes and kind of been taking deals from people and selling cubes. He's got a lot of money now so that he can buy the stuff he needs to run his operation and maybe get the other army up. Coming around to the green player here, who I think is Japan. Yeah, you can see the rising sun on the green field. So this is a huge farmland, and that's been kind of cool. He's been able to trade, a few yellow cubes to somebody for one cool cube or whatever. And he's looking at the possibility of just continuing to expand the farmland because it's fairly cheap to run just a farm economy. He was also looking, though, hey, farmers are good at fighting because I get all this extra damn food and I have this red and blue. I could build another army. I could spend a food, and that allows me to move multiple armies. So I have 2 food, so I could actually capture the rest of this territory. Yes, so what? I mean, if everything's conquered, this guy's not going to produce anymore. So then kind of the question becomes, well, why should I even bother? Maybe somebody will give me money or something to produce in their conquered territory. But you can't take someone out this way. I mean, you can starve them to death and make it so that they just sit in stasis, but then you're kind of wasting your military where it's a resource that you could have used elsewhere. So it's kind of a troubling situation. Going a military route after someone else has already carved a piece off of someone, it looks like it's less likely to produce. And then on this final guy, and we've gone around a couple of rounds, he decided he can't make this thing work. Branching out into a third type of commodity just is too much, and this is something that was brought up on Board Game Geek. Hey, once you kind of settle into what you're doing, you can't change it without a high expense. Now, he settled into something kind of dumb, especially taking a promissory note. He's sold off some of his commodities and is paying that off so he doesn't keep paying the penalty on it. He may be able to make it to work if he gets another white space, but he just hasn't had the tokens to do that. And, cutting back, these kind of games are weird because usually it makes more sense to take it, once you're used to it, to take out more of a loan and, put yourself in a more exposed position. This guy, by playing conservatively, is probably dooming himself completely at this point. The risky move at the beginning had to be followed with more risk. We'll see. This guy also has problems, and I think I cheated with him. This has a dual sector. He had to feed both sectors on this map separately, which means, okay, he's already got blue feeding into the reds, but he has to put another food into here, and that means he needs one more food than I thought he did. So he kind of cheated a little bit on his turn. I thought there was really an advantage. In a lot of ways, there aren't any easy, cheap routes in this game. The military route is probably the best in terms of, hey, he sleazed one very valuable commodity, and that puts a risk to being the guy holding the valuable commodities. Those blacks are terribly valuable, and he's in an area where everybody's kind of looking and saying, I'd like some of that action. Not that he's doing terribly well, because people are grabbing his action. All right. Onward. Now, my awareness of what other people are doing may be higher than it would be in an actual game. So, for example, I can see that this guy, by looking at his chart, is setting up for a red build. And this is why you may not want to use these planning phase charts. I can also kind of see what he's building up towards and what he's likely to go into. He's only going to build blue and red. But the fact that I can see that over there, and red's price, the labor price, is fairly high, and I'm sitting on 3 of these cubes, it's very tempting at this point to dump these cubes into the money pile. I'm going to roll a die for him because I'm not sure he realizes, he should realize that. This is how I handle these kind of... Yeah, he does, and he realizes it fully. So he's going to drop a quick 44 bucks worth into the market, 3 cubes, which you wouldn't have been able to do before. You would have been selling them one at a time and maybe changing things. But the prices are fairly smooth. All right. I swing back around to this guy, and the things that he's been able to get for his food, just throw him into this, I need to get more military. This buys him the army. The 2 foods, grab him 2 territories if he wants them. He doesn't have to take them. He's got the potential to flag something, but I don't know how much value that is. But he doesn't have the cash and the sale value left to be able to do what he wants, which is expand to another farm. So then the only real question is, well, can he expand to one of these other things that's a little cheaper? And doing so, this one is the most appealing because black production, we know that that's, currently not a lot of it's being produced. And everything else, a little bit more. The whites are also interesting, though. And they're the other thing that maybe doesn't require the same cost, but it requires a black piece. So I'm tempted to go towards the black production. Let me see what I would need to buy for that. I have the 2 reds. I need to get 2 whites, which would cost me, and I'd also need these. So I have a food to spare. 2 whites would cost me 35 bucks, and I have 22 and 5, maybe 27. I'm not going to be able to get a trade for 2 whites at this point for what I have, or for a white. Nobody's kicking around with extras. So I guess the question is military, nothing, or promissory note. I don't want to go with the promissory note, so I'm going to go with that military option, I think, and just hold all my pieces. Maybe, I can see what develops. It puts me in stasis for a turn, but that's okay. Okay, I think we're done with the trade phase and into the actual development phase. And now we'll see how this all kind of turns out. All right, a little bit of flagging going on. These guys are both planning on building red. A lot of red labor pools being built here. Now, over to our dude here. He built his military. He can't attack immediately, and now things get interesting. This guy can sacrifice a white by eating one of his production markers to pull his army out of there. That white is worth 16 bucks. The army costs him a red and a blue, which is worth more than that. It's worth 1833. So economically, I think what he wants to do is move his army. And because he has a food, he can't just move it into, further into that guy's territory. So he's going to pull back, and that kind of defends his own territory. But it cuts into his production. And you can see war is not pleasant for anyone. Very much like after the Holocaust. But here, you can actually almost afford it. So I think it's actually a viable threat here, as opposed to after the Holocaust, where not only are you collapsing your economy, but your economy just never got going anyway. All right. I guess we move on to this guy who doesn't look like he's doing anything. Oh, he was going to build armies. Oh. Well, after he pulled out, we had a buildup of armies here. This guy wasn't doing anything. He ended up flagging an area. He's planning on building a black over here. Which is kind of risky. It's next to somebody else's army. Which probably is a mistake, because they can spend food to grab whatever he's got if they want to. He doesn't have to produce, though. He's not automated. That's the problem. This guy automated his production, which makes it harder to, you know, control the knobs, right? He can, of course, feed him food and cut it down there. But now this fella has moved in, grabbing one territory, and kind of is putting the threat on him. He's going to have to move in and attack to preserve his territories. And it's really a tough job for the guy who's got the black pieces. Anyway, we're back over here. I think nothing's going on for many of these. They've already done their builds. Well, I think we're at the end here. The invasions come from the other side. They had a quick little fight, exchanging pieces, but he's lost another territory. This guy is claiming it. He's set up to produce using the automation, so he's going to hand the black now to this other guy, and he's just got this horrible problem. This isn't going to help him, though. He doesn't have, he didn't set up his manpower to produce, and he's actually not even really able to produce the whites. If he can only produce 2 whites, that's worth 32. He might be better off shifting to this. It's going to save him a food, and he gets more production that way. I don't know. It's a tough game because you have to pre-plan so much. Alright. And for endpoint, well, this is a wealthy pile of reds that he's producing from that section over there. Now, red's value has already started to drop. We're down to sales at 14, buying at 18. And that's, I don't know. I mean, you can see white's not doing too bad. Is kind of low, too. Nobody's really been dealing in whites. Which is odd, because you need whites to produce a lot of things. I think the short... Someone was producing them. He was, and had a few out for sale. This next turn he doesn't, so their price should scream up. But yeah, and of course we have the food massive influx. Over here we're seeing kind of a stasis. He's unable to move, but he paid off his promissory note at least. He's thinking this white production was just a mistake, and he probably wants to build more blue, get more into the kind of line that he's in with his red-blue. Blue and yellow are the cheap things to produce, sort of. Blue doesn't need blue to produce, and yellow only needs 1 blue to produce. But his total area just isn't that impressive. Trying to see what else is going on. This guy's got a kind of nice mix. He's paying a premium, though, because he's got 2 different industries, and that's a painful thing. I don't think you want to make that shift. It seems attractive, but I don't think you want to make that shift until, like the Reds, they're all gone. Now he's got to branch out into another industry. All right, up we go.